Bonjour, grade fours. Welcome back to our social studies lessons online. I'm here with our next lesson on the arrival of the French settlers in Canada. So we're going to take a little break from learning about Alberta, and we're going to start learning about how Canada was discovered. And we're going to start with the French. We're going to learn about a couple of French explorers. Then you're going to learn about the arrival of the English and a couple of the English explorers that came here first. And then you're going to get to see how they made their way into Alberta. So follow along in your notes. You'll need the page that says Arrival of the French and the second page after it. Yeah, so I'll just go ahead and share my screen. All right, so Arrival of the French. I'm just gonna make it a little bigger. There we go. As you read the information below, it asks you to use a highlighter to keep track of essential information. So if you want to do that, it would probably be good for the next activity that we're going to do. So as we read along, I'll give you some pointers of what you could highlight, but you can also just choose what you want to highlight, things that you think are important to you. So here we go about the French. In 1534, Jacques Cartier sailed as well as mapped, in 1534, Jacques Cartier sailed as well as mapped the area known today as the Gulf of St. Lawrence. This led to future voyages led by himself, which brought upon the discovery of the St. Lawrence River, which in turn led to the discovery of what would eventually become major permanent settlements in Canada, Montreal and Quebec City. He named the areas he had discovered New France. So this is a lot of information, and it's really just put into 3 or 4 sentences here, but it's all really important. So you might want to highlight just this first sentence. So back then, when explorers were exploring, they didn't have big detailed maps. They might know they might have known the general direction of where they were going, but they didn't know what they were going to find or what the land looked like. So it was Jacques Cartier's job to map the area that he was discovering, which meant because he was created those maps, more people and more explorers, including himself, could voyage back to Canada, and he just ended up discovering a really important river, the St. Lawrence River. So I would highlight St. Lawrence River if I were you. And then actually I probably would highlight from St. Lawrence River because once they found the St. Lawrence River, they could use it to travel more deep into Canada, and they settled, they created settlements which ended up being Montreal and Quebec, and he named it New France. So that's all Jacques Cartier. Once we're done this video lesson, you're going to actually watch a couple just videos about Jacques Cartier, and you're going to learn a little bit more about his exploration. And you will learn about him a lot more in higher grades when you get older, but I think it's really interesting to find out how these explorers found our country, because that's literally what their job was, to explore new land. So then we get to 1604. So this is about, actually it's exactly 70 years after Jacques Cartier came to Canada. In 1604, Samuel de Champlain founded the first settlement in Canada known as Port Royal. 4 years later, in 1608, he founded Quebec. So I must have misspoke when I said earlier, Jacques Cartier did not create these settlements, but he found this river, which led others, including Samuel de Champlain, to create settlements such as Quebec. So I would highlight those first 2 sentences. They're really important. Along with being responsible for setting up the first settlements in Canada, Samuel de Champlain was also responsible for initial alliances and trade with the Huron and Algonquin peoples. So remember, we're not in Alberta yet. We don't have the Cree or the Blackfoot people here. Instead, in Western Canada, there were the Huron and Algonquin First Nations peoples. And Samuel de Champlain played a large part in trading with these 2 groups, because he needed information, right? They didn't know much about the area. They didn't know what food they could eat. They needed furs to trade and stuff like that, and vital information, because the more he talked to the First Nations, the more they could tell him about the land that he knew nothing about. Samuel de Champlain was also responsible for further exploration inland using the Ottawa River to discover the Great Lakes of Canada. So you just have to imagine, let me just pull up a map of Canada. So you have to imagine that these settlers were coming in over here in Newfoundland, Labrador, and in through here. So they needed to find these rivers so they could get more inland. And Samuel de Champlain ended up getting, he founded Quebec, which is on a body of water right here, so they could get to it. And then Montreal too was created at this time. And then these are actually the Great Lakes that they're talking about. Remember, in order to travel during this time, you needed some sort of water, because they were just getting horses into Canada. It wasn't widespread. They didn't have vehicles, they didn't have planes, and it would be cold and hard to walk through the land. So they needed some sort of water source. So that was the main thing that the First Nations helped them with, was finding new rivers and ways to get across the land easier. Out of this sentence, out of this paragraph, I would highlight he was also responsible for initial trades with the Huron and Algonquin peoples. I would also highlight discover the Great Lakes. So Samuel de Champlain should be known for those things. Then we get down to this paragraph. It says, through constant communication with the Aboriginal people, the First Nations, the French began to learn about waterways which would allow them to travel further inland. Oh, I just said that. Towards the end of the 17th century, Jacques de Noyon pushed further west beyond present day, Thunder Bay, Ontario. So again, let's take a look at our map. So Thunder Bay is all the way over here. So it's taking them a long time to get more inland, but this other explorer named Jacques de Noyon, he pushed further west and he got to Thunder Bay because of the information given to him from the Aboriginal people. Given the understanding of the land from the Aboriginal people, the French continued to move further inland, and by 1738, Fort Rogue, or Rouge, I'm going to say Rouge, had been established in what is present-day Winnipeg. So remember, Jacques Cartier came in 1534. 70 years later, Samuel de Champlain came in 1604. Then another, how many years? Some quick math. So we were almost 100. It was about 134 years later. Jacques de Noyon made it to Winnipeg, what is now Winnipeg. And this is all because of the information that the First Nations people gave him. So it took about almost 200 years, actually almost exactly, that's crazy, almost exactly 200 years for the French to get just to Winnipeg. So it's taking them a long time. Remember though, they are creating settlements and learning more about the land. They're bringing more people over during that time, but it's taking them a while to get this way. Again, no roads, no railroad, nothing. They're taking the water or walking, but mostly taking the water. So then again, remember also we learned about the fur trade. They needed to be on the waterways for the fur trade to get to the posts, the trading posts faster, and to work with the First Nations. And remember what I said about the French being rivals with the British. So as the rivalries in the fur trade began to escalate, the French began to move further and further west using the Saskatchewan River and other waterways. Towards the end of the 18th century, the French began to move further inland into what is now currently Alberta, with the Northwest Company setting up fur trade posts to rival the Hudson's Bay Company. I haven't told you to highlight anything for quite a while, so make sure you're highlighting what you think is important, especially in this paragraph up here. Maybe talk about him setting up the established fort in Winnipeg, and for this first sentence is really important, working with the Aboriginal people to find new waterways. Then down here, so it took them a long time to get west, but they were really trying to get away from the Hudson's Bay Company because the Hudson's Bay, remember, was the monopoly in the fur trade. The British had the upper hand. They were kind of winning per se. They were getting more trades. They had more alliances. They had more land. And that was their company, the Hudson's Bay Company. The French company, the Northwest Company, were rivals. They were trying to beat them. So they ended up moving and moving, trying to establish more alliances, get more land, and eventually they ended up in Edmonton because of that. So I want you to just write down a couple of the things that you highlighted. The instructions say, in the space below, summarize important information from the text in the form of jot notes. For example, Jacques Cartier explored Western Canada, Montreal and Quebec. Remember how I taught you to do like a little bullet point, like a little dot here, and then a sentence? It doesn't even have to be a complete sentence, just some important notes. So maybe try to write one about Jacques Cartier, one about Samuel de Champlain, one about Jacques de Noyon, and one about them moving west. If you can get at least 4 from the writing, that's awesome. If you can do more, amazing. Then after that, you are going to, once my video is done, you're going to go back into Google Classroom, into this lesson. It's not posted for you yet, but you will see. And you're going to watch these videos. So there's 2 about Jacques Cartier, a little animated one, and then a heritage minute. You guys are not young or old enough to remember this, but when I was a kid and we watched TV, especially if it was on a Canadian channel, they would pause the show that you were watching and we'd have to watch these things called heritage minutes. So it's a bunch of actors acting out Jacques Cartier's adventures in Canada. So it's only a minute. So watch those 2 videos and then see if you can write something else in your important points about Jacques Cartier, and then watch these 2 videos about Samuel de Champlain. See, they're all quite short videos. Try to get some information out of them and write them down. The information will help you later. All right, my friends, that was social studies from Miss Christal's apartment. I hope you found this interesting. The history of Canada is really cool, and it all ties into Alberta's story. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask me. If not, good luck writing your notes, and I hope you enjoy the little videos.